At Guanyin Temple, what was told to this old man was precisely these words from Laozi. However, these words are not found in the Tao Te Ching, so everyone should realize that many chapters were removed from the Tao Te Ching, and these chapters are extremely important. Ordinary people simply cannot comprehend them. The Mawangdui silk manuscript version will do. The two can be compared side by side because there are differences in their content. This Jia Yi version is actually several hundred years earlier than the version unearthed at Mawangdui. The Mawangdui manuscripts date back to the Western Han period, which is quite a long time ago from now. It's been nearly 2,000 years, while the Jia Yi version is over 2,100 years old. But can it completely restore the version that Laozi originally wrote? Not necessarily, because it's still about 500 years removed from Laozi's time. How many changes and events could have happened in those 500 years? Moreover, in ancient times, people would pass things down like this. They wouldn't say it directly, but now, things can be forced or altered a lot. When people copied texts, sometimes they would omit or add things. Some people, especially those who love to write, would add a bit here or there when copying ancient texts. If they didn't agree with a certain sentence, they might delete it and replace it with something they approved of. This kind of thing happened all the time, especially among those who like to write books. But then, where else can we see some of the differences in other versions of Laozi's work? Everyone can try translating and comparing them. In the book of Liezi, there are accounts of what Laozi said back then, right? For example, Laozi's comments on Yangzhu, or his remarks about Guan Yu, and also in Liezi, like when Guan Yinzi asked about the Dao, right? He studied the Dao as well. And when Lao Chengzi went to Guan Yinzi to learn the art of transformation, Guan Yinzi made some statements at the time. These were things Laozi had passed on to Guan Yinzi. So why aren't these included in the Tao Te Ching? I've mentioned before when talking about the Tao Te Ching, actually. Altogether, there were more than 8,000 characters, nearly 9,000 characters, over 8,000, almost 9,000. But the versions that have been passed down to us now only have a little over 5,000 characters. If you look at the Jia and Yi versions, how many characters do they have? It seems like just over 3,000 or 2,000 characters because they are only partial versions. The Mawangdui ancient manuscript is also just a part. It's not complete. Why is that? Because some very important sections were deliberately omitted during the process of transmission. So, how can we see everyone's original intention? Back then, Lao Chengzi studied the art of transformation with Guan Yinzi for 3 years, but failed to grasp the method. And Guan Yinzi didn't teach him anything at all. He was just testing his character. In the end, Lao Chengzi couldn't persist any longer. He didn't want to keep learning, so he bid farewell and went home. But after staying home for a few months, he felt unwilling to give up, so he came back to find Guan Yinzi again. Guan Yinzi called him into a room and dismissed everyone else. Why did he dismiss everyone else? Because the teachings cannot be passed on to a third ear. In other words, once he had reached this level, it was time to tell him, but when telling him, others couldn't be present. If someone who hadn't reached that level overheard, they would misunderstand, spread it around incorrectly, and in the end, the teachings would be distorted. Why do so many things get distorted as they're passed down? It's because the wisdom of the ancients is well-founded. There's a reason for it. That's why they say the teachings cannot be passed on to a third ear. So Guan Yinzi called Lao Chengzi into the room and dismissed everyone else. Then he told him about when Lao Dan traveled west to Hangu Pass and shared with him some principles about the changes of heaven and earth, the formation of the universe, and the transformations among all things. There were also some techniques about how practitioners could use the energy of all things to create transformations and illusions that appear before you. Some illusions can last longer, while others cannot. The ones that cannot last are like magic tricks. They are only temporary, like sleight of hand, right? Or some other types of illusions. So what are the ones that last? For example, something really impressive like the ability to turn stone into gold with a touch. You instantly turn a stone into gold, and it stays gold forever. It can't change back. But what about the ones that don't last? For instance, back in the day, Lu Dongbin, right? He also learned this technique, the art of turning stone into gold. But this stone to gold transformation does work. For example, right now you turn this stone into gold and what you see is gold. But after a night or after some time when you go back and look again, you open it up and find that it's turned back into stone. So it's not permanent, it's just temporary at that moment. At Guanyin Temple, what was told to the old man was actually this passage from Laozi. But this passage does not appear in the Tao Te Ching, so you can see that many chapters were removed from the Tao Te Ching. And these chapters were extremely important, beyond the understanding of ordinary people. And now, the articles that remain in the Tao Te Ching are mostly about educating and enlightening people, including helping emperors to control certain aspects of society, to manage certain things within society. But the true teachings of the Tao, the things of heaven and earth, many of these many truly valuable things were concealed because such things cannot be passed on to ordinary people. That's how it is.